Okay. So, hi, my name is Erik Beaumont. I'm the COO of Ventuz. Despite my name, Beaumont, I don't speak enough French to do this in French. I apologize. It's very rude of me. But if I did it in French, you would all look at me like I was talking about bananas. So, I will talk very fast and very unintelligibly. I would promise to talk slowly and understandably, but I never managed to do that. So I'm going to talk very fast, and you won't understand a thing. But I'll do a lot of pretty pictures, and hopefully that'll be enough. And oops, I'll hopefully not break my microphone while I sit down here. Hold on a second, it's okay. Okay, so okay, we now have something. Oh, it's opening up. Do we have a mouse pad or something so that this? Because reflective surfaces and mice is always awesome. All right. So this is called breakable because I break it all the time. And I have an intro with something. Yes! So, my presentation, because none of you know who Ventuz is called Who the Fuck is Ventuz and Why Do You Care? So, Ventuz is a very interesting piece of software. Ventuz is the middle piece. When you have compositing systems and all of that sort of thing, that's really great. And then there's all this technology in game engines. It's all real-time and looks amazing. Everybody's seen like the game intros for like Battlefront and all of that sort of thing, where it's like cinema quality, amazing. And these two worlds are completely separate. So about 10 years ago, we decided, okay, let's take this great game technology and the quality and the speed and all the advantages, and this compositing idea, and let's sort of finagle and put it together. So, that's who Ventuz is. Now, and if I can figure out how to make this work. There we go. Whatever. So I need to just dock this up here so I actually have my window. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly give you a little bit of an overview of the kind of things that we do in Ventuz, what it's about, and I'll start by showing you a show reel. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to go here and make this a little bit bigger. This is actually not intended to be playback from my actual show, but that's fine. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to show you a couple of the kinds of projects that Ventuz gets into as a software and explain a little bit about it. So, we're a real-time software. What does that mean? That means that we're inherently fantastic for interactive because you're not pre-rendering anything. Okay? So everything is rendered on the fly. You can see all sorts of interactive things, people swiping, people moving, but also things like other weird devices, like, for example, proximity sensors, Kinect kinds of devices, motion sensors, all of that sort of thing. That's also interactivity, maybe stage mechanics. You can see we're a 3D tool. It's not just a 2D compositing, like Flash or something like that, where you're putting layers and hopefully it does something interactive, but it's actually a true 3D engine. You can see we're doing very, very high resolutions. Again, interactive in this case, 3D, etc., over very, very high resolutions with lots of screens. Because we're a real-time engine, we're actually scalable very easily. Yeah? If you have one computer and that's not enough, well then you add another computer. It's not like video, where after 4K your hard disks begin to get slow. It's not like that, because we can just add more and more computers, and the synchronization can happen at a graphic card level. We can do weird sorts of things like projection mapping in 3D. Everybody does that. But now let's rotate the car. Because we're a real-time engine, you can actually be rotating the car and projection mapping at the same time. Concerts where things change all the time. You're not in a pre-rendered pipeline. It's real-time, so you can change things on the fly whenever you need to. Things like this, where it's an interactive display. Yeah? You're moving it and it's changing the 3D environment based on the position of the screen combined with the whatever, yada yada. Things like this, large format screen displays that are completely interactive. Yeah? So you can have lots of users going in there in the room, touching, using all of the company data that's being brought in the real time, social media, all of that sort of thing. This is actually in Paris. This was fantastic. It was a projection mapping on buildings. So they drive up with a little car. The little car had a giant projector in it. They paint all over the landmarks, graffiti, and then drive off before they get arrested. But it is fantastic sort of thing. Porsche has been using us for years. Microsoft has been using this, Airbus, that sort of thing. This is great because it's 3D mapping. And then it was touch sensitive, so that designers could draw on the car and explain their design lines. All right? Here, for example, car configurators where you can, set up your cars. Audi did a similar sort of thing. these are the kinds of projects. Now, the interesting thing about this that most of you don't know is this is almost all of these projects are done in Cinema 4D. Right? The 3D part has to come from somewhere. It's content that's created. It's the same kind of pipeline that you're working with if you're in a VFX world, right? Or if you're in an animation world. But you're then outputting it not to a film, but to an interactive component, or to a concert component. Yeah? And the ability, because, ooh, a real mouse pad. Fantastic. We came prepared. Yeah, whatever. So, basically, that's the kinds of things we get into. Now, Ventuz is used in a number of different markets, and one of the most complex things you can ask me is, what do you do? Because we're used all over the place, and probably you've seen us doing something, and you've never heard of us. Because we're always used as the engine or the component underneath the project that everybody hears about. So if you watched a game show on television, that's probably Ventuz, or very likely. So Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, for example? That's Ventuz, doing all of the SMS voting and the graphics on air and the in-studio touchscreens and video walls and that kind of thing. If you watched a launch event for a large airplane company, Airbus, for example, you know, when they launch their new airplane and they have a big presentation and all of that, that's probably Ventuz underneath. Yeah, those are the sorts of things. Car manufacturers. If you go, for example, watch TV and they do this election things where they're clicking on maps and showing you the candidates that lost and won, whatever, that could be Ventuz as well. A lot of those sorts of things are us. So that's where we get into, but it's all over the place. Now, why are we here at the Maxon event? So that's the question that everybody's asking themselves, because it's all very fun, but after all, you're here to watch Cinema 4D stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you why. So let me just close this down and open up a new scene. So what we did a while back is we decided, okay, Ventuz is fantastic, it's great, but it had a problem. It was kind of difficult for artists to use. I hate to use the word German engineering, but that's what it is.
Like Volkswagen?
Like Volkswagen, yes. I'm an American, I can get away with it. Okay. Don't need to go away. Okay. So, what we did is we sort of looked out and we talked to a lot of our customers, and there was a couple things that are kind of difficult to do in Ventuz. And we said, okay, the main focus for the next version of Ventuz, which is Ventuz 5, incidentally, the Ventuz 5 open beta starts next week. If you go to our website, you can register to take part in our beta and tell us how amazing the software is and that there's no bugs whatsoever. It's German engineered. It has no bugs, like Volkswagen. But we talked to our customers, and we found that the majority of our customers, because they're doing motion graphics, presentations, they actually are Cinema 4D users, by the vast majority of them. And we said, okay, that's fantastic. How can we make their lives easier? So what we did is we said, okay, the biggest problem with doing something like Ventuz is, so you have the compositing, the animation, all that you can do in Ventuz, but the modeling, the texturing part, you're doing that in C4D. And then you're exporting it to an OBJ or a collada file, and then you're hoping that everything gets there the same way. But we're a real-time engine, and Cinema 4D is not really built, you know, it's not a real-time engine, so it looks different. And then you go back and you try and fix things, then you bake this and that, and then you go back, and it never looks the same. So how do we make this easier? Well, what we do is we add a Ventuz tag to Cinema 4D. And if I can grab it properly, there we go. So what we have is we basically have two tags. The top one basically says make a connection to Ventuz. And the beauty of this is this works over a network. So I can have a C4D machine where somebody's modeling, and I can have a Ventuz machine somewhere else where somebody's doing all this other stuff, and it'll connect together and talk. Okay, so over the network, that's cool. And then the second one is, this is a little tag. And this tells me what stuff do I want over in Ventuz. There's all sorts of possibilities. Well, okay, let's just grab a geometry live, because that's our live connection. There we go. And I'll want an axis in front of it, because I'm going to have to scale this down. The scaling between Ventuz and C4D is still slightly different. So the beauty of it is now these two programs know about each other. So you can see here there's a C4D tag down at the bottom, and it says null. Okay, that's because I've called this object null. I was very clever in my naming conventions. Very good practice. Call everything finished 1, finished 2. Nobody ever does that. So I just connected that, and it's now, oops, connected these two. And then if I just click on here and hit update, it now has built, go over here. It's built the entire cinema tree that I had here, and if I, as I said, adjust the scaling slightly, somewhere, there we go, here's my object. Okay? So it's now made a live connection. It's not imported it. It's made a live connection between the two softwares. So anything I do to it in C4D is in Ventuz. This is a real-time engine with physical HDR, image-based lighting, the whole blah, 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 but also data integration, social media, whatever I want to do, interactivity, touch, etc. But I'm modeling over here in texturing. So now the next step is I want to do something a little bit more creative because a sphere is kind of boring. And I have to excuse myself. I'm a former Softimage employee, I admit it. So I'm learning. It's going faster than expected. But some things are not where I expect them to be. But you can see here, all of a sudden, everything's brought over. Every modeling and texturing step I do. Okay, so now I have it in Ventuz over here. What can I do with it? Well, all right, let's make it touchable. There we go. Now hopefully, if I, yeah, there we go. So now, you can't see this, but I have a touch screen here. So now I've made it multi-touch just by adding a node in front of it. All right? And then I say, okay, that's cool. But that's kind of, you know, unimpressive. Let's see what else we can do with this. All right. Now, the beauty is I talked about it being a compositing engine. Here you have a layer-based system. So it's a layer-based compositing system. Okay, let's add a background to it. In fact, let's be silly and use a live video input. Hello. Actually, no, that's really stupid. That's really stupid. So instead, actually what I'm going to do is be even more stupid. You've all seen Superman 2, like the original Superman, yeah? You know what's coming, don't you? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go in here, and I'm going to put myself on this sphere, because why not? Live, there we go, live video. And what I just do is here, I have this texture thingy, and this is a material stack. So we have a material system that's very, very flexible. In fact, it's new to Ventuz 5. Allows you to build complex materials with, you know, quasi-PBR, so roughness and specular maps and all of that sort of thing. In fact, if you look, if you're using Substance Designer, you can actually take the texture stacks from Substance directly in here and have it looking awesome, if you know what you're doing. And then we're going to take this, and I'm just going to take an empty texture property. Don't worry about this, this is just random. But what I'm doing is I'm just connecting things. So now I have myself on the sphere. Hello. And it's still touchable. So now I can touch with one hand and wave with the other, and that's all really cool. But it still is this compositing system. So if I go over here, by the way, tell me how I'm doing for time, because I'm just going to talk until somebody like drags me off stage. Awesome, good. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this in here, and this is a full-blown real-time compositing engine. So if I go in here and I need some sort of background movie file, I don't know, cool pinched flowing background, awesome. So there we go, we have some sort of pitch, and I'm going to put a loop on it, and I'm actually going to restart this. So now this is a movie file, it's a layer, okay? In front of that I have my 3D object, it's also a layer, and now I can go in here and say, well, okay, maybe I want to start adding effects. So when I talk about compositing, we have all of the sorts of things that you would want to do in your compositing environment, but we're built for real time. So if I want to add maybe like a glare, maybe a little bit of a glow effect, or maybe like some sort of drop shadow or something like that. I have no idea what I'm doing here. But I can just start adding these. Every parameter that I have in here is animatable. It's changeable. But it's also connectable with logic. Yeah? So I can start doing some sort of weird logic types things. So let's do something cool, just to give you an idea of the kinds of things that a real-time system can do that you couldn't do otherwise. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take, actually no, I'm going to take this front layer here, and I'm going to put a noise distortion on it. So what does a noise distortion do? A noise distortion does this. Okay? You all know it from your glitch kind of things. You know, you want to create a glitch kind of effect based on something. It's only affecting the 3D layer, yeah, while I'm doing this. So it's, again, this is compositing. But now what I want is I don't want just, you know, some sort of glitch effect to happen all the time. I want it to be driven by some sort of thing. This is real time, right? So we're building interactivity. We're building an environment, right? So maybe I could connect it to the touch node. Or what I'll actually do is I'm going to put a audio analysis node in here. So my doohickey here, laptop, I meant to say, has a microphone in it. So if I just take the volume, Hello? Yeah, that's actually taking it. It's a little bit big. Let's sort of bring that down. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take a math node and just throw that on there. And this is like a range change or yeah, change range kind of thing. I don't know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do from maybe, I have no idea what's a good value down here. Let's do 100 to 200. So basically the input's going to be some sort of volume level, and it's going to output 0 to 100. Boom. Boom. There you go. Okay? So now I've created real-time effects on a real-time live input that maps to a 3D object that's completely, if I stop talking, touchable. Right? This is the sort of thing that you can do. You can make it interactive. You can put it. But there's one other really cool thing about Ventuz that nobody else can do. This is on one screen, but maybe I want a projection map on buildings, yeah, or on a car, or I want to drive a video wall. So this content is great, but let's go crazy and let's say, hey, you know what? I want to put this on something a little bit more complicated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I call it projectors, and it is in fact at this point not yet projectors, but it will be projectors, and I'm going to open up my screen layout. Okay, so now what I'm going to say is, how many screens do I want this playing on? Okay, so this is going to make my laptop very unhappy because I'm now going to be playing it out at 4K, which is probably a little bit chunky for my laptop, but it doesn't matter. So this is going to be 4 screens. Okay, we're just going to save it. Yeah. Oops, that's fine. Don't worry. It's okay, boy. You're okay. Yes, there we are. So now this is rendering out at 4K. Yeah, in real time. And I can see this is my screens running here, right? And what I can also do is I can go in here and say, okay, well, you know what? This screen, I need that up here, and this screen over here. And these screens are actually going to be daisy chain micro tiles or whatever, right? And I've set it up. I save it. And now you can see here, okay, now my machine's struggling. You can see here, these are where it's not going to render. This is where it's rendering, and it's doing all the splitting for me. All right? If I say, okay, well, you know what, that's way too silly for one machine, no problem. Let's do one screen, but maybe 2 machines. All right? So now it's 2 separate machines. We're taking care of the clustering and synchronization. Yeah? And at the same time, I can make an overlap for projectors. Save that. So now what it's doing is you can see there's machine 1, there's machine 2. It's synchronizing everything, keeping all of the content synchronized. And I have here complete control, so I can go into things like warping, blending, projection mapping, shaping, all of that sort of thing, directly in the tool. All right? So you can do all of your awesome projects that don't exist just within the, hey, I'm going to play back a film world. All right? Pretty much easy and straightforward. So one other quick thing, if I look real quick at sort of the kinds of things that you can get into in Ventuz, if I just open up the toolbox, you're going to see things like RSS feeds, XML feeds, JSON, databases. You can read data directly out of a SQL database and drive stuff in Ventuz. You can be reading out social media, Twitters. Everybody wants Twitter. Why? I don't know, but everybody wants it. And nobody knows what social media is, by the way. It's just like, I want social media. Okay, what does that mean? Facebook. Okay, great. What are you going to do with it? Facebook. Okay, great. We heard that. Anyway, but that's how it works. But we have the tools. You don't have to write pipelines. You don't have to do integrations. It's all there. And you can immediately integrate it. So when your customer says, I want an interactive social media wall, you say, certainly, would you like Twitter or Facebook? Oh, both. Anyway, we have all of this sort of support for texturing, movie clip playback, live video playback, integration, all of the sort of thing, images, it doesn't matter. And the engine itself is HDR capable. So you can have high dynamic range images doing image-based lighting on your 3D models that you're texturing and modeling in C4D, bringing it across. And then you can do things like animate masks that you're building in C4D and all of that sort of thing using a layer-based compositing. So, as you can well understand, half an hour is not enough. Oh, I have 10 more minutes? Woohoo! Or is anybody's eyes bleeding yet? Okay, we're good. So, as you can well understand, this tool is extremely powerful, but it's very complex. There's a lot of stuff that you can do with it. One other quick thing that I was going to show, actually, while I'm here. What comes up a lot is the question of scalability. people ask, okay, so it's a real-time engine, what does that mean in terms of size? Where are the limits? So I actually made a test, and oh, this is actually over 2 machines now, so I just have to go back to my single machine, otherwise it's going to get confused. So this is actually a scene. Each Star Destroyer has 5 million polygons. So this is a scene with 25 million polygons in a real-time environment using image-based lighting in an HDR sort of thingamajig. There we go. Spelling is awesome. So, and I just take that, I think this guy down here. Yay, there we are. Bigger, hello. Anyway, you can have a lot of fun with Star Destroyers. People always ask me, why did you take the Star Destroyer? Because they're cool. So anyway, but you can see it's fast, it's responsive, even though this is 5 million triangles, and the whole scene has 25 million triangles, it's still perfect, and this is on a laptop, okay? So, yes, it is a cool laptop. No, you can't have it. Let me just go and show you a couple other examples of this sorts of things. So, the other thing that I wanted to show you, this is actually an example of something that I had no idea this would work. And actually, this was at the last C4D event in Munich, in Germany. And one of the guys there had built a mixer table, right, with faders, sort of, you know, for your audio mixing. And I thought, hey, that's cool. Let me just sort of show you. Where is it? Oops, there it is, somewhere. So this was Glenn from Maxon built this. Very, very cool. And I looked at it and said, hey, you know, that's really cool. Can I have it? And he said, no. And I said, please? And he said, okay. He was like, oh, well, what do you want to do with it? And I was like, well, I want to sell it on eBay, of course. Sorry, I had to put the texture on there. So what it is this is fantastic because this is exactly the sort of thing that I would want to use. So what does it do? Well, the first thing I, of course, did is made it usable. Okay, so then now I have a touch screen, I have my fader, and that's all really cool. Why does that make sense? Well, because one of the great things that Ventuz has is MIDI. So what that means is I can build my faders and output the translation of that fader to a MIDI output and actually control a synthesizer or an audio mixing table or whatever. And even cooler is OSC. Are you familiar with OSC? Okay, OSC is the coolest thing since sliced bread. Which in France is really uncool, actually. But anyway, OSC is a protocol that's sent out over a network, and it's sort of meant, originally it's called Open Sound Control, and it was meant as the successor to MIDI. Never caught on, but it is phenomenal, because what it allows to do is a networked PC to send out broadcast information with an address space. I'm losing most of you. Anyway, what it does is it basically sends out onto a network, hey, you're the tag MIDI be really loud 1, and you're going to get a value, and it's sending it out to the whole network, and anybody that's listening for MIDI be really loud 1 is going to get that value really fast. So you can build a complete control thing that's driving your lighting engine and all of that sort of thing, and it works over a network broadcast, and it's phenomenally fast and cool. How am I doing? 5 minutes. Okay. I can already see them with like threatening 5 minutes to me. So anyway, that's the sort of thing. You can connect it so it actually works. It's not just an interact, it's driving other devices in there. And you don't have to be a programmer to do this. It's node-based. You're just throwing them in. If you can cope with MoGraph and that sort of thing, you can do this. Right? And that's really cool. And then you have it all ready to go. So with that, obviously you have no idea more than you did about 30 minutes ago, but at least you were somewhat entertained. I'm going to be upstairs. If you'd like to see more, please come, talk to me. I'll be happy to explain something or confuse you even further. Both. I do both very well. Anyway, thank you very much for your attention. Glad to be here.